Fëanor was the greatest elf, whose destiny shaped the fate of all who came after. His brilliance shaped the history of the elves, and his pride nearly destroyed them. His life was a flame that rose brighter than any other, but it burned so fiercely that it consumed everything around it. To understand the fate of Middle-earth, one must understand the life of Fëanor, son of Finwë and Miriel. He was born in Aman, the Blessed Realm, long before the sun and moon existed. His mother, Miriel, was a woman of extraordinary strength and skill, but even she could not endure the fire of the spirit that entered the world through her child. After giving birth to Fëanor, her own energy and spirit were utterly spent. She told Finwë that she had no strength left to continue living in a body of flesh. She lay down in the gardens of Lorien, closed her eyes, and her spirit departed to the halls of Mandos. No elf mother had ever died after childbirth. The Valar themselves were shocked. And so, from the very beginning, Fëanor's existence broke the natural order. The fire in him was too powerful, too intense, too demanding. Finwë loved his son deeply, perhaps more than anything else in the world. But a wound had already been cut into the family. After a time, Finwë took a second wife, Indis of the Vanyar, gentle and kind. She gave him more children, Fingolfin and Finarfin. But Fëanor never accepted them as true brothers. He felt that Indis had replaced his mother, and that his father's heart had been divided. This suspicion and resentment grew slowly, year by year, until it became a permanent scar in the royal house of the Noldor. Yet Fëanor's bitterness had deeper roots. As the firstborn son of Finwë's first wife, he was the rightful and undisputed heir to the throne of the Noldor, the future High King of his people. His status as crown prince was beyond question, and because of this, he viewed every action of his half-brothers as a possible threat to his inheritance. Their advice to Finwë, their growing popularity, their increasing influence, all of it fed his belief that they might one day try to take what was his by right. Thus, his resentment was not only emotional, but political. It became part of his identity. His pride was royal pride, and the fear of losing what was promised to him shaped much of what he became. Even as a boy, Fëanor showed a mind of extraordinary power. He learned faster than any craftsman could teach. He invented a new system of writing, the Tengwar, which became one of the greatest achievements of elven culture. He mastered metalwork, gemcraft, linguistics, engineering, and lore. He was passionate, impatient, brilliant, and deeply proud. His creations reflected the intense flame that lived within him. And none were greater than the Silmarils. Using knowledge and skill no one else possessed, Fëanor captured the unmarred light of the two trees of Valinor, the only pure light in existence, and bound it into 3 jewels. The Silmarils were not simple stones. Inside them lived the spirit of the trees themselves, the living memory of a world before any shadow. Even the Valar marveled at them. They could not reproduce what he had done. They honored him, praised him, loved the jewels, but only Fëanor adored them with a love so fierce that it bordered on obsession. He set the Silmarils in a crystal chamber and carried the keys himself. He allowed no one else to touch them. They were the greatest work of his life, and he believed that only he had the right to possess them. It was during this time that Morgoth, once Melkor, the strongest of the Valar, now the first Dark Lord, began poisoning the hearts of the Noldor. Pretending to be repentant, he walked freely in Valinor, spreading whispers, doubts, and lies. He came to Fëanor, approached him with admiration and flattery, telling him that the Valar feared his strength, envied his creations, and wished to take the Silmarils away from him. These were lies, but they struck exactly at the weakness in Fëanor's heart. Bit by bit, he began to see threats where none existed. He grew suspicious of the Valar, then hostile toward his half-brothers. One day, in a moment of fury, he drew a sword and threatened Fingolfin. This was the first time in all of the long history of the elves that one elf had lifted a weapon against another. The Valar intervened. Fëanor was banished from the city of Tirion, and sent to the northern fortress of Formenos. He took his sons and his father with him. The Silmarils were stored there under heavy guard. The division in the House of Finwë became permanent, and the resentment between the brothers deepened into something far darker. Then came the catastrophe that changed the fate of Arda forever. With the monstrous spider being Ungoliant, Morgoth attacked the two trees of Valinor, piercing them with venom and draining their light until they withered and died. Darkness fell on the world for the first time since the elves awakened. While the Valar were grieving the loss, Morgoth hurried north, broke into Formenos, murdered Finwë, and stole the Silmarils. He fled across the frozen north toward Middle-earth, carrying with him the last untainted light of the world. When Fëanor learned that his father was dead and that the Silmarils were gone, something inside him shattered. His grief ignited into pure fire. Standing before the Noldor, he swore a terrible oath, that he and his 7 sons would pursue the Silmarils to the ends of the world, slay anyone who withheld them, whether friend or foe, elf or man or Vala, and never rest until they were recovered. It was the most dreadful vow ever spoken by the elves. Even Mandos was shaken by it. And then Mandos himself spoke the doom of the Noldor. His voice carried the weight of prophecy, that because of their rebellion and because of the blood they had shed, their journey would bring them no joy, that exile, sorrow, and ruin would follow them. And he sealed his judgment with the most haunting words ever spoken to the elves. "Tears unnumbered ye shall shed." Many who heard these words turned back in fear. But Fëanor and his sons did not move. Their spirits burned too fiercely to heed any warning. Driven by rage, pride, and vengeance, Fëanor incited the Noldor to rebel against the Valar and leave Aman forever. But to reach Middle-earth, they needed ships. The Teleri, who lived in the port of Alqualonde, refused to give up their vessels. Fëanor and his followers attacked them. The first kinslaying began, elves killing elves for the first time. Blood spilled on the white shores as the Noldor seized the ships by force. This act was a turning point. It was the moment Fëanor crossed from pride into tragedy, from brilliance into destruction. Fëanor, with his people and the stolen ships, set sail toward Middle-earth. But he betrayed even his own kinsmen. Instead of sending the ships back to bring Fingolfin's host across the sea, he ordered the ships burned. The flames lit the shores of Loskar as Fingolfin watched from far across the water. Fëanor chose to abandon them to the frozen wasteland of the Helcaraxe. His betrayal divided the Noldor into 2 great hosts. Fëanor's host arrived swiftly, strong and ready for war. But Fingolfin's host suffered terribly. Denied the ships, they crossed the deadly grinding ice of the Helcaraxe. Icy chasms, freezing storms, shifting flows that swallowed entire families. Many died on the journey. But those who survived gained a resolve and a hatred that would shape their fate. When they finally reached Middle-earth, they arrived beneath the first rising of the sun, blowing their trumpets so loudly that even Morgoth trembled. In Middle-earth, Fëanor struck Morgoth's armies with terrifying force. In the first battle, he drove the orcs before him like leaves in a storm. The fire in him blazed brighter than ever. But Fëanor's triumph became reckless overconfidence. He chased a retreating army too far north and found himself surrounded by Balrogs. Even then, he fought with a fury unmatched by any elf before or after. But he was wounded again and again, and though his sons tried to reach him, they came too late. Morgoth himself did not bother to face Fëanor. He sent his captains instead. As Fëanor lay dying, he finally understood that Morgoth could not be defeated by strength alone, nor reclaimed by the force of arms he commanded. But even in his final breath, he refused to release his oath. He commanded his sons to hold to it, no matter the cost. And then his spirit, burning too fiercely for the world to contain it, consumed his body in flame, leaving nothing but ash carried away by the wind. Fëanor's life ended, but the consequences of his choices did not. His oath drove his sons into ruin. The kinslayings multiplied. Kingdoms fell. The Silmarils brought pain, madness, exile, and death to nearly all who claimed them. Yet, paradoxically, Fëanor's legacy also saved the world. Without the Silmarils, Eärendil could never have sailed to Valinor to plead for aid against Morgoth. Without that plea, the War of Wrath would never have come, and Morgoth would never have been defeated. Fëanor was the brightest flame of the elves, a fire that illuminated the world and scorched it at the same time. His genius and his pride were inseparable. His creations were wonders. His decisions were disasters. He remains the most complex, destructive, brilliant, and unforgettable of all the children of Ilúvatar. His fire shaped the fate of ages, and the world burned in its light. If you wish to explore even deeper into the ancient history of Arda, go watch our next video, The Complete Story of Gondolin, where the hidden city rises in secrecy, beauty, and tragedy during the First Age of the world. Thank you for watching, and if you want more tales from Middle-earth, join us and subscribe so you don't miss the next story.